again, son or daughter. I still don't know which one you are just quite yet, but that's okay. Um, I talked to you about Superman. I talked about him being from outer space and from other planets and stuff like that. And then I realized maybe that's a little too confusing. So I figured, why don't we take it back a little bit and kind of start back at the beginning. So first, we're going to talk about the scientific view of how the universe came to be, which this is the stuff that you probably will learn about in school. Then we're going to look at the Christian view of creation, which you'll learn about at church. So let's start back in the beginning, in which scientists say was 13.7 billion years ago. Now, at this time, the universe that you think of, where we have planets and stars and galaxies and everything like that, that didn't exist yet. 13.7 billion years ago, what did exist was a clump of matter. Now, think of everything in this galaxy all smushed together into this tiny, 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 tiny little, like, dot, okay? Now, because of everything that was smushed in, now the planets didn't look like the planets and stuff like that, and it wasn't smashed in, but because of how dense, and that means because of how much just stuff there was smashed into this little tiny thing, it was just bursting with power. And finally, the power couldn't take it anymore, and it exploded out. Then, as it exploded, what started to happen was everything that was once condensed in this little tiny thing started to spread out. And it was really, really hot still, okay? So, as it started to kind of spread and move across what we know as space, as it started to spread out, it started finally cooling down. And the cooling down process is finally what was able to help make things like planets and stars and stuff finally start to form. The scientists believe the Big Bang Theory happened because we can look at galaxies. Now, galaxies, think of Earth and think of all the planets there within. We're all just a tiny part of one galaxy. And then there's just millions of galaxies all across the universe, okay? So, they see that galaxies are actually moving away from a central point. So, they figure that if all galaxies seem to be moving away, then that means at one time they were all together. And this is something that can be seen throughout the entire universe, and it shows that everything is expanding outwards. Okay? In all of this expansion, there's this one little tiny planet. We're going to color it in red because in the beginning it was really, really, really hot. There's little tiny little planet that we call Earth. Scientists believe that Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years, okay? Now, like I said, at the time it was really, really hot. It doesn't look anything like it does today. Back then, it was just kind of this big rock of kind of like molten lava. Everything was still really hot, still trying to, figure out its place in this universe. Now, this is actually around the time where scientists think the moon came into existence. Now, what happened was, because everything around the Earth, the galaxy, everything was still kind of coming into its own being at this time, so that it was just chaos, just crazy, crazy things were happening. So there was lots of think of them as like rocks crashing around through space, and there were a lot of them that were hitting the Earth. One of them, scientists think, was so big that when it came down and hit Earth, now if you see here, like this would be part of like the Earth that you would think of it, okay? Now, so something big hits it, and it hits it so hard that it kind of upsets everything, and it sends ripples through, and because of the impact down, it shot out a huge chunk of the Earth up. And that part went up and became the moon. Now, because of gravity, which is something that kind of keeps everything together, and we'll explain more of that later, but because of gravity, and Earth is so big, it's got its own gravity, it kind of, as the moon shot out into space, it kind of held on to it. And so now it's connected with it, and now it's in the gravitational pull of Earth. So that's where the moon formed, okay? Now, over time, the Earth finally started to cool down. Now, this cooling down process is started to make it look kind of like what the Earth looked like today. Now, scientists are kind of still torn about when the oceans were formed. During this cooling time is when certain fissures in the Earth could have started to release water, or the melting and the condensation could have formed water. Sometimes scientists believe that even during this time of volcanic activity and things hitting Earth, there were still oceans present. So, during this time, everything starts cooling down, and instead of it being this big hot rock of hotness, it finally started to form something similar to what we know today. And that is the basic scientific understanding of how the Earth was created. Now, we could talk about how humans were created, how animals came about, how the Earth, had its continents and everything like that. But that's going to be a video for another time. And you know what? Maybe we'll just talk about it right now and get this whole history out of the way. But this is how the Earth was created.